By the end of season 3, Invincible has evolved from the kid who got ragdolled by his father into someone finally living up to his name. But the question everyone wants to know the answer to is, could current Invincible beat Omni-Man? Well, the answer might surprise you, and it all comes down to one key detail that changes everything: Mark's evolution. Let's start with a key scene everyone remembers. Omni-Man holding Mark's face against a speeding train, civilians dying around them, and Mark completely powerless to stop any of it. That wasn't a fight. It was a lesson in what happens when a Viltrumite with thousands of years of experience faces one who's barely learned to fly. But season 3 Mark is not even close to being that same person. Mark's growth through the next 2 seasons is exponential, and in season 3 we get actual numbers to prove it. Under Cecil Stedman's oversight at the Global Defense Agency, Mark undergoes intense training specifically designed to counter Viltrumites. By episode 4, Donald Ferguson reports Mark's stats. Speed is up 65%, endurance is up 75%.
Over the last 90 days, Mark's speed has increased 65%, his endurance 70%.
Overall strength has increased to the point where he can match threats that previously overwhelmed him, like Anissa. Mark receives a new black and blue suit from Art Rosenbaum, showing his darker side in the season. Honestly, I hated the suit at first, but over the season it actually kinda grew on me. Though the suit isn't what matters. What matters is what Mark can do now. The fights tell the real story. Mark battles Doc Seismic, Powerplex, and multiple evil variants of himself during the Invincible War. Each of these encounters pushes him further, forces him to adapt, and makes him significantly stronger through the Viltrumite biological imperative. Because here's the thing about Viltrumite physiology that people forget: they grow stronger through near-death experiences and combat. Then there's the personal evolution. Mark reconciles with Adam Eve, finally starting their relationship.
So are we dating or what?
Yes! I mean, if you want to, I definitely want to. Okay.
He bonds with half-brother Oliver, explicitly advising against repeating Omni-Man's methods. He confronts Cecil over deceptions, leading to a fallout where Mark destroys Reaniman and threatens Cecil's life. #justice for Cecil. This fractures the Guardians of the Globe. But here's what matters for our question. Mark is making choices Omni-Man wouldn't make. He's developing his own moral code, and those choices are forging him into something potentially more dangerous than his father ever was. Hear me out. The season culminates with Mark facing multiversal threats during the Invincible War in episode 7. Evil variants of himself, each one a mirror of what he could become, each one powerful enough to destroy cities. But Mark survives. More than survives even. He actually helps end the threat. By the season's end, Mark is traumatized but empowered and even stands on business, finally, with the fight against Conquest, which undoubtedly makes him significantly stronger once again. So where does all this growth actually leave Mark? What can he do now that he couldn't do before? Defining current Mark. Current Mark, as we're defining him, is Mark at the end of season 3, episode 8. Specifically, the Mark who has survived the Invincible War and Conquest fight and processed everything that came before it. This is critical because Mark's power level isn't static. It's growing with every episode. Let's break down what current Mark can actually do with specific feats from the show. Strength and durability first. Mark lifts and throws massive structures during training. Not struggling, not barely managing, actually throwing them. He survives city-level destruction in fights without being incapacitated. Mark overpowers Reaniman by tearing them apart with his bare hands like paper. Speed is where the 65% increase really shows. Mark traverses global distances in seconds. When evil variants attack, Mark reacts to faster than light attacks. Not dodges them all, but reacts, processes what's happening, begins countering. The fact that he can even perceive attacks at that speed puts him in a completely different category than season 1 Mark. Additionally, during his final fight with Angstrom Levy, we see a clear increase in speed when he manages to dodge numerous portals. Combat prowess has evolved beyond raw power. Mark defeats Powerplex, a villain specifically enhanced to absorb kinetic energy and fire electric blasts without serious injury. He battles 18 evil multiversal variants, overpowering several solo before they coordinate against Angstrom Levy. These variants cause widespread devastation and kill heroes like Rexplode. Mark fights multiple versions of himself all at once and survives. Then there's the Conquest fight. Episode 8. Now this is the big daddy of growth. Conquest dominates initially. He's slaughtering civilians, seemingly nearly killing Mark several times. Mark should die, but somehow this guy just keeps getting up. At one point, this guy taps into his adrenaline, biting into Conquest's shoulder and hitting a devious combo. Now, when he is about to get ground pounded, Adam Eve intervenes, burning off Conquest's skin with a full power blast, and then Mark finishes it with headbutts, crushing Conquest's skull until the Viltrumite stops moving. the questionable part, since Mark didn't fully beat him solo. Though while he was close to losing, Conquest was playing at first and he wasn't fully on his own. It's safe to say that Mark did a crazy job at beating up Conquest, and it'll only get easier from now, which helps us get closer to an answer. Because according to Global Defense Agency leader Cecil Stedman, Conquest is explicitly stated to be stronger than Omni-Man. Even Omni-Man would likely lose to Conquest. Mark defeats him. With help, yes, but he defeats him. Regeneration and adaptation show Mark healing from maiming injuries in days, and he adapts mid-fight, growing stronger through Viltrumite biology, learning patterns, improving technique as battles progress. Current Mark operates at planetary level threats. He's no longer a city level hero learning the ropes. He's fighting beings who can destroy civilizations, and he's winning. The 65% speed increase and 70% endurance increase aren't just numbers. They represent the gap between Season 1 Mark, who got demolished, and Season 3 Mark, who stands a legitimate chance. But here's the question everyone's avoiding. Mark beats Conquest with help. He needed Eve's intervention. He needed Rage to push past his limits. Can he beat Omni-Man solo? Because Nolan isn't just strong, he's something else entirely. Nolan's power. Nolan Grayson, Mark's father, and the Viltrumite who nearly conquered Earth single-handedly. Let's be very clear about what Omni-Man represents, because this isn't just about raw power. This is about what happens when you take Viltrumite biology and add thousands of years of experience. The strength feats establish the baseline. Omni-Man lifts over 100 tons casually. In the comics, with help from the other Viltrumites, he punches through planets. The show scales this back, but solo mountain busting is still within his capabilities. In Season 1, he decimates the Guardians of the Globe single-handedly. These are Earth's mightiest heroes, each one powerful enough to defend the planet. Omni-Man kills them all in minutes. Let's be specific about that fight because it demonstrates tactical superiority. He doesn't just overpower them, he systematically eliminates each Guardian by exploiting their specific weaknesses. War Woman gets speed blitzed. Darkwing gets crushed before he can even use his gadget. Red Rush, the speedster, gets his head pulped because Omni-Man predicts his pattern. Execution based on thousands of years of combat knowledge. Durability and speed put Omni-Man at the top of the show's hierarchy. He tanks nuclear equivalent hits without serious injury. He flies at faster than light speeds, crossing solar systems in what appears to be hours or days. He survives in space without air for weeks. When you fight Omni-Man, you're not fighting someone who can be worn down through attrition. You're fighting someone whose baseline durability exceeds almost everything you can throw at him. Combat experience is where the gap becomes truly terrifying. Omni-Man mentors younger Viltrumites, teaching them techniques refined over millennia. He defeats kaijus and entire civilizations solo. His tactical acumen allows him to identify and exploit weaknesses instantly. When he fights Mark in Season 1, he's not struggling, he's teaching. Every blow is calculated to cause maximum pain while keeping Mark alive long enough to learn the lesson. But Season 3 context changes things. Omni-Man is imprisoned by Viltrumites and faces execution. He bonds with Alan the alien, escapes with Battle Beast's help, and reveals the Viltrumite Empire has fewer than 50 pure bloods left. This is crucial information. Omni-Man hasn't faced the same escalated threats as Mark in Season 3. He's been imprisoned, fighting for survival against other Viltrumites, not testing his limits against multiversal variants or planet-destroying villains. Some analysis argue Omni-Man could still win through superior tactics, his thousands of years of experience versus Mark's few years of actual combat. The technique gap might be insurmountable regardless of raw power levels. Okay, so if a fight breaks out, what does it really come down to? Omni-Man has greater experience, tactical knowledge, and a killer instinct that Mark might lack. He knows how to fight Viltrumites because he's been fighting them for thousands of years. He knows the techniques, the vulnerabilities, the psychological warfare tactics that break opponents. But Mark has something Omni-Man might not account for: growth potential, rage, and the ability to surpass his limits when pushed to the edge. And in a fight between a father who's already reached his ceiling and a son who's still climbing, that might be everything. So how does the actual fight play out? We're looking at 4 distinct scenarios. Each one plays out differently based on circumstances, mindset, and what both fighters are willing to do. Because that's the thing about Viltrumite fights. Scenario 1, straight brawl. This would just be the 2 Viltrumites meeting in the sky and trading blows until one stops moving. This is the scenario that favors strength and experience. In a pure slugfest, Omni-Man's thousands of years of combat knowledge give him edges Mark can't compensate for. He knows how to position his body to maximize impact. He knows when to tank hits and when to deflect. He understands momentum and leverage in 3-dimensional combat in ways Mark is still learning. But here's where current Mark's physical improvements matter. That 60 65% speed increase means Mark is reacting faster than Omni-Man remembers from Season 1. The 70% endurance increase means Mark isn't getting worn down as quickly. When Omni-Man goes for the moves that worked before, holding Mark's face against surfaces, crushing his bones, Mark's enhanced durability lets him survive longer. The Conquest fight proves Mark can withstand prolonged assault from someone stronger than Omni-Man. If he can survive Conquest's assault, he can survive Omni-Man's for a little while at least. Omni-Man likely wins the early exchanges, but as the fight extends, as Mark adapts and grows, the gap closes. Eventually, Mark's rage and refusal to quit push him past his limits, the same way he pushed past Conquest, but I still think Omni-Man would have a slight edge. So overall, I would give this fight a 4 out of 10 chance to Mark, but the next 3 scenarios are way crazier. Scenario 2, Mark fights smart. Now we're talking. This is where Mark really steps up his game and starts to use all the knowledge and new skills he's got. Mark knows Omni-Man better than almost anyone. He knows his father's arrogance, his belief in Viltrumite's superiority, his emotional weak points about Earth and Debbie. In a tactical fight, Mark has information Omni-Man might not expect him to use. The strategy would involve baiting Omni-Man into overcommitting, make him think he's winning, then counter when he gets careless, use the environment. High-frequency sounds could disrupt Omni-Man's equilibrium, leading the fight near GDA facilities where Cecil could intervene with experimental weapons, forcing Omni-Man to choose between fighting Mark and protecting civilians, exploiting the psychological conflict that broke Omni-Man in Season 1. Mark's personal conflicts from Season 3 shows he's willing to make hard choices now. He destroyed Reaniman and threatened Cecil's life when pushed. He's not the naive hero anymore. If fighting smart means fighting dirty, current Mark might do it. This scenario shifts odds to maybe 6 out of 10 for Mark because he's using every advantage instead of just brawling, but it requires Mark to be colder, more calculating than we've seen him to be, unlike the next one, which will be nearly impossible to survive. Scenario 3, Nolan goes full power. Omni-Man fights Mark the way he fought the Guardians of the Globe, with lethal intent and maximum efficiency. This is the nightmare scenario for Mark, because we've never actually seen Omni-Man go all out against his son. Season 1 was a beating, absolutely, but Omni-Man wanted Mark alive. What happens when that restraint disappears? Omni-Man's flight mastery gives him 3-dimensional superiority. He controls engagement distance, attacking from angles Mark can't predict, using speed to disorient. His tactical experience means he's not making mistakes. Every move is calculated to inflict maximum damage while minimizing risk. The execution method would be systematic. Omni-Man targets Mark's emotional vulnerabilities first, brings up Debbie, Eve, and even Oliver. Then he exploits that fractured mental state with precise strikes designed to cripple, not kill immediately. Break Mark's limbs, rupture organs, force Mark into a defensive position where rage can't even save him because he physically can't move. Mark's only counter is the same thing that saved him against Conquest. Pure, unfiltered Viltrumite rage that pushes past all damage, all pain, all rational thought. Biting, clawing, headbutting, whatever it takes. The animal fury that let him crush Conquest's skull. But would that be enough against Omni-Man fighting seriously? I'm leaning towards a hard no here. Not without help or without something to give Mark the edge he needs. This scenario probably goes 2 out of 10 to Mark. Mark could pull out a win through sheer refusal to die and Viltrumite adaptation, but it's unlikely. But what if the fight had a much bigger emotional factor? Here's what none of the other scenarios account for. Neither of them wants this fight. Omni-Man's entire Season 1 arc was about his love for Mark breaking through Viltrumite conditioning. He left Earth rather than kill his son. He's shown throughout the series that Mark is his weakness, the one thing that makes him question everything the Empire taught him. Mark, despite everything, still loves his father. He's traumatized by what Nolan did, absolutely. He's rejected Nolan's philosophy, but that doesn't erase the fact that for most of Mark's life, Nolan was a good father. The psychological conflict of actually trying to kill Omni-Man would affect Mark's performance. In this scenario, the fight happens, but both fighters are holding back emotionally even as they go all out physically. Point, not kill. Mark is trying to prove he's strong enough to stand against his father, not murder him. That changes everything, because in a fight where both combatants are subconsciously pulling their most lethal moves, where neither is truly committed to ending the other, technique and experience matter more than raw power. Omni-Man probably takes a 6 out of 10 because his emotional control is better. Thousands of years of conditioning mean he can compartmentalize better than Mark. He can hurt Mark badly enough to win without crossing the line into patricide. Mark, younger and more emotionally volatile, might make mistakes that cost him. But if something happens during the fight, if Omni-Man goes too far or says the wrong thing and triggers Mark's rage fully, all bets are off. Because Rage Mode Mark, the Mark who crushed Conquest's skull, doesn't think. He just fights. And that version of Mark might be unstoppable. According to research from multiple sources, if allies intervene, as often happens in this series, Mark's odds improve significantly. Adam Eve's intervention was crucial against Conquest. If Eve or Oliver or even Alan the alien shows up during a Mark versus Omni-Man fight, that tips scales toward Mark. He proved that he can win with support. Solo is where questions remain. So we've broken down the scenarios. We've looked at how different circumstances change outcomes. But you're here for the actual answer. Can current Invincible beat Omni-Man? Let's do the final head-to-head comparison and give you the verdict. Can and current Invincible beat Omni-Man. Yes, but it's close. Really close. If you enjoyed this video and want to see if Invincible could beat everyone else he lost to, click the video on screen right now.